Alrighty, we are live. I can see the chat room's already getting busy. So, folks, those of you who are here already, looks like majority on YouTube. If you just do the usual, let me know that you can hear me. Otherwise, I'm just sitting here speaking to myself. Let me know that you can see the countdown coming through, and then we're good. We're all good. We'll have another 3 minutes and 38 seconds until we go live proper. That's brilliant. Thanks, as usual, everybody, for doing that. You know what it's like with these technicals. There's only so much planning you can do. Sometimes the technicals just have a mind of their own. So it's good to know that's working. Really looking forward to this one, as I do every single week. I'm just hoping I don't end up getting my wallet out. I've got a feeling I might be buying something by the end of this. Alrighty, thank you so much for joining me yet again for another live broadcast. This one a little bit different because although we've got a guest, we're not necessarily going to be going through the photography side of it. Although our guest is a photographer, we're going to go through some tech stuff, as you just seen there from the thumbnail. But people from all over the place. Great to see the chat room busy again. I was doing my best there to try and get everybody. When you were posting where you were from, people from all over the place. I'm glad to say that here in the UK, those of you who aren't in the UK, we've actually got some good weather. It's actually going all right at the moment. We're doing all right. Hopefully this is our summer for a few more weeks at least. But anyway, listen, we're going to bring Peter, my friend Peter, in a moment. But before we do, just do a quick little bit of admin. First thing to let you know about, actually, I did a newsletter at the beginning of the week, I think it was. I lose track of time. But it was all to do with this. Subscriber-only content. Now, my thoughts with this were, if you got my email, you'll know my thoughts on this. But what I basically want to do is, I am really grateful when people sign up to be part of my newsletter, my new newsletter that goes out twice a month. But I'm also very conscious that each and every one of us gets our inboxes bombarded on a daily basis. And I didn't want to just be adding to that content with stuff that generally you could find elsewhere. Because the content I was sending out to you in a newsletter, although it was all curated and it was all kind of all in one place, it was stuff that you would find elsewhere. So what I came up with the idea of doing was providing subscriber-only content so that it gives you a reason to want to be part of that newsletter and to receive it into your inbox. So that's what I'm going to do. Though I did have some questions coming about my YouTube channel. That is still going to be going. I'm loving doing these live broadcasts, and I will be posting out the occasional pre-record. But the usual kind of like in-depth Lightroom and Photoshop tutorials, I want to save those for people who go to the effort of subscribing. So that's where they're going to be. They'll be sent out every 2 weeks, one every 2 weeks into the newsletter. You get a link. All I ask is that you don't share it. That's for you. Those of you who are part of the newsletter, it's for you to share. So if you don't know where that is, you can go to my homepage on my website. That's where you'll find details about how to actually subscribe for it. It's all for free, obviously, or there's the details there as well. I'll put the links to that also in the description part of the video. The other thing to let you know about was, and I couldn't remember if I said thank you for this last week, it was all to do with the printing course, which is at the moment is available for pre-order until the 30th. I am bowled over how well the pre-order is going. It is wonderful. But what's really good is I sent out in that newsletter shortly after the pre-order started, saying to people, look, here's the content, but what else do you think should be in there? Okay, and I've had some fantastic emails come through. So some of them covering the same kind of things. A lot of it is definitely covered, but I've gained a lot of stuff from the emails that came in. So thanks for any of you who are out there who sent an email in. There is going to be stuff in there to answer any questions. There is going to be stuff on resizing, resampling your images, interpolation, printing black and whites. That's all going to be in there. All right, so that's just kind of put you at rest so that you know it's going to be in. But thank you for the emails anyway. But listen, that's enough of the admin. I've got a feeling we're going to need all the time we can get tonight for a number of reasons. But let me just introduce you to my friend Peter. But before I do, let's play you a quick promo. Now, this isn't one I put together like I do normally every week. Pete very kindly sent this short promo over. It's not the usual kind of thing with the slideshow of images. It's just something that he's got that kind of gives a brief introduction to say, look, this is who I am. This is what I do. So I'll play that, and then we'll bring the main man in. So no pressure tonight for me, making sure this technical stuff works, having a technical expert in the house. But let me just bring him in. I shall unmute him, make sure that's working, which it is. And then I'll press the button to bring him in and say, Pete, can you hear me?
Hello, hello. Yes, I can. Yes, I
Good
can.
stuff. Let's just make sure I get your volumes right just there. I don't want to burst anybody's eardrums. Pete, thank you so much for... thanks for joining us for doing this. I know this is something that I've wanted to get you in for a while, but timing never seemed to be right. But now's the time. I know you've been a busy man.
Yeah, it's right in the middle of wedding season. and this is my 20th year as a photographer, believe it or not. I can't believe I'm still doing it, but I love it as much as I do as I did when I first started. But yeah, wedding season means that obviously it's really busy. I've got a wedding tomorrow. Who was a wedding on a Monday, right? But there we go.
That's
But
just mad.
no,
I thought,
yeah,
is it because I remember when I first started out, sorry for butting in, but I remember when I first started out and I did try my hand, I think like a lot of people do, when they're first trying to find their feet and what it is they want to do. I did a few weddings and I get a cold shiver down my back now thinking about it. But it was always on a Saturday, but people were starting to be a little bit box clever and having them on a Friday because the venues were cheaper. But now you're doing them on Mondays as well?
I think COVID changed all of that for people really, and wedding venues certainly wanted to be able to make more money and utilize the time that they had during the week. I photographed at a venue the other day and they said, we've got weddings for the next 14 days before we get a single day's break. So they're just the turnaround times for all of these people is just incredible. And they're just some of the places that I've been to. They're just such an amazing experience, really, that they kind of get it turn it around so quickly,
Well, I'm glad there's people like you out there that do weddings because I just definitely couldn't. It's not my thing, but I know why you do them. It's just it is something that you get a real kick out of. But listen, we'll probably talk about that at some point more, I guess, during this session. But to get us kind of warmed up, and I know obviously before we start talking about the tech stuff, give us a quick idea then, because obviously we saw your trailer there where it says that photographer, you do education side of things. There's the tech expert, the headshot stuff. Give us a quick potted history that got you to the position where you are now. What happened to make Pete Morgan the photographer?
Oh my gosh. I'd always done computers, I guess. My dad was very much a case of, you always need to go out and get a job and have a backup and this. And I loved computers ever since I was young. Had my own IT company for a long time. I got a chance to get out of that after I found that I was doing 80 hours a week working for myself, employing other people as well, and it just became a real family sort of strain, So when I got out of that, someone asked me to photograph their wedding because I was the only person they knew with a digital camera, which was in 2004. So, and I'd always taken pictures, so it kind of went from there, really. I did one, and I thought, I quite enjoyed this. And one became two became four, and I'm up into the just under 300 now, I think. 300 weddings. I think it's just, I've lost count, but I can find the numbers. I'm just under 300, I think. So, yeah, so it's quite a lot. Quite a lot of weddings.
I'll say, yeah. God, blimey.
But yeah, the technical stuff really helped because during lockdown, we were all stuck in the house and it was a great time for photographers to be able to look at their systems and look at what they did and, try to see how improvements can be made, not just to the computers and backup and disaster recovery, but, learning more about the software we all use and kind of try and improve all of that. And that's where I found a niche, really. Currently sort of supporting people in about 10 different countries. And the remote support allows me to do that, really. With the furthest away being New Zealand. Hi, Shannon Malloy. How you doing? Yeah. So, we've got people all over the world.
Well, obviously that's under the kind of umbrella of your tech for togs kind of thing, which is obviously where all the actual support comes for the tech side of things. But obviously tonight, what we're going to go through, or what you're going to go through rather, is the fact that you were on stage fairly recently and you did a presentation which you put together, and it's like 10 top tips or 10 hints and tips to get the best backups, making sure your photos are safe and your computer's healthy, I think. And that's what you're going to kind of go through for us with this. So what I will say to everybody is, as Pete's going through this, make use of the chat room, because I know I'll be scribbling away. I'll be interrupting like a good one. I'm sure there's things I'll want to know, but make use of the chat room there for Pete to cover any kind of questions that you might have as well. Any terminology maybe that someone like Pete can probably take for granted that I might not know or you might not know. So Pete,
I think
let's,
that's. Go on. I was going to say. I
I
think
was
that's
going to say,
the
yeah,
main
bring up
thing.
your presentation is going to bring that up on the screen. But what were you going to say then, mate?
Yeah, I was going to say. I think there's a lot of that in terms of acronyms and be working in the tech industry. There's a lot of people like to use acronyms. Me, I like to break it down and make it simple. We're all human beings. We want to be able to understand it. Nobody wants to feel like
Yeah.
that they don't understand what's going on. So anything you want to ask that I might not have explained correctly, please be call me out on it. And
Oh,
I'll
don't worry.
answer
I
it.
will.
I'll do my best.
All right. Well, cool.
Yeah.
So let us know when you want, and I'll share your screen, mate, so we can bring it up. Shall I do that now?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Right. I'm going to bring you on screen, and I'm going to put you in the bottom corner, just there.
I'm in the
All right.
bottom
How's
corner.
that?
Nobody puts PT in the corner. There you go. But yeah, so essentially this was a big thank you, first of all, to Gary Hill and Charlie Kaufman, who gave me the opportunity to speak at Click Live and really get a chance to talk about this sort of thing, which is something I don't normally get a lot of opportunity to talk about and bore people with, but it's important, just as years ago we used to have to understand the process of developing a film. Nowadays we have to understand the process that goes behind developing our photographs and kind of everything that goes with that as well. Sort of before it was all about storing negatives, now it's about storing files and folders and things like that. So these are the top 10 things really that I get asked, and the sort of things that we're going to face as photographers and that we already face, right? So let's have a little look. Here we go. Okay, next. Hang on. There you go, look. Okay, so look to optimize your workflow, but not at the expense of your business. I always throw these little tips in here, and what this is all about is just make sure that if you are running a business doing this, that you're essentially allowing yourself to allowing yourself to run your business, but also kind of making sure that you're not doing this during production time. Really, I don't make any big changes during the summer months when I'm at my busiest. So that's something to kind of be aware with, really. Okay. Let's have a little look. There you go. Number 10, file sizes are always going to get bigger. So plan scalability. Okay. The first digital cameras were 1 meg. I pulled a box out of my attic the other day and had cameras in there that were, I had a HP camera, and that was a one megabyte camera, and with Panasonic and Canon cameras and everything, the file size is always going to get larger. But what that essentially means is that you're going to need more space. So as a business, you're obviously going to need to plan the fact that as your business grows, so does the amount of space that you're going to need, really, in order to in order to be able to store and archive all your images, because you will get customers that are coming back to you after 7-8 years and sort of say to you, do you have photographs of my grandfather?
And Pete, what I will say there is, I mean, I know that you're mentioning this is all to do with business, but even nowadays, with our cameras being crazy pixel sizes and really big file size that comes out of them, just regular folks who love going out taking pictures are going to need to consider their backing up, because I mean, I don't go out and photograph, images like you do, thousands of images over a year because of weddings. Although I do, go out and do quite a lot of photography, I'm running out of hard drive space. Do you know what I mean? So this is where I'm thinking I might have to cough up a few pennies to kind of invest in something that's going to help me, because I am pushing it to the line at the moment with how much space I've got left. So yeah,
absolutely. And
not
for
just
those
business people.
and for those for those people that shoot video as well, you've got that additional consideration. So planning scalability is always important, but we're going to show you today a way to do that as an option. Okay. Right. Let's have a little look. Okay. Oh, there you go. So scalability, right? On-site storage. So I use a NAS. This is the model that I use, the DS1821 Plus. It's made by Synology, and I've tried loads of different NAS devices before this. This is the best one in my opinion. It's a significant investment when you first start, but the last one I had was in 2017, and I ended up giving that away to a friend when I changed to this new model, and it's still, I saw him a couple of weeks ago, and it's still working. So buying something that lasts is always going to be better than investing in buying drives. I mean, how many of our users, how many of our viewers, sorry, have drive after drive after drive, trying to find the pictures that you want, you know, on which drive is it on? Oh my gosh, is it on this drive? Unless you've got a savant like knowledge of where all your photographs are and everything is documented, having everything in one place, but in a system like this, a network storage device, is the option.
There you go.
I
I
can
think you know what said
access
it. Anthony Crothers just said there. Look, Anthony Crothers, Pete, what is a
what is a
NAS?
NAS.
You
Thank you.
with your TLAs, your three-letter
Yeah,
abbreviations, what you like? What's a
what is a
NAS?
NAS? So a NAS is essentially, it stands for network attached storage. Now, rather than a drive like this, like these little ones that just get plugged into the computer, or these ones here, this one plugs into your router, or in your router in the house. So, and that allows the contents to be accessed by not just one computer, but by multiple computers across the internet, and across your internal network as well. The advantage with this one, you can see, is that it's got 8 bays that allow you to put a single drive in each one. And what it does is it shares the data across the drives. Think of it being like a jigsaw puzzle, that when the puzzle is completed, all the different pieces of the puzzle make up your pictures. So your JPEG or your RAW file might be spread across 3 or 4 drives, meaning that if one of them dies, you can very easily replace it, and the other drives will rebuild the contents of the
Right.
broken drive. So it gives you redundancy sort of built in just by the very way it's set up. There's several different ways to set it up, but generally the way I set it up is a RAID 5 array. Nicholas has just said, can Lightroom read from a NAS? Absolutely. Lightroom can read from a NAS because I am doing it. I use a Mac, and it works perfectly there. So Deborah, you mentioned that's you with too many drives. Yeah, absolutely right. I fell into a situation where I was trying to find pictures that had been on old drives. This revolutionized my workflow. The beauty of the Synology as well, and this isn't an advert for them, right? This is literally because this is the best solution that I've found over years and years of research, is that it's got a little operating system on it, so you can log into it, and they give you loads of free programs, loads of apps. One of them allows you to connect to Backblaze, and then overnight my system will back up to the cloud automatically without me having to do anything, really, any manual kind of intervention. So yeah, and the
Pete,
last thing is
just put in there, Pete, just quickly, that storage there where it spreads the information across all of the drives. I think you said it's got like 8 drives, and there's ones that you can get that have got different amounts of drives in.
yes,
But not all of the drives are used for storage. Is that right? One of them is always like a spare. Is that correct? Have I got that right?
So it equates to one of them. Actually, all the data is spread across all the drives, but the way it works is to give you a really easy example of how much space you could actually use. If you had 4 1 terabyte drives in there, you'd actually get 3 terabytes of usable space, because what equates to one drive is a percentage of each of the drives, but it equates to one drive size. It isn't actually one specific drive, because if that
Right.
drive actually died, you'd be in trouble.
Yeah,
But
good point.
it's the actual it equates to the size of one of the drives. So yeah,
And it's not just
one,
it's not just a NAS that has that, is it? It just so happens that there are NASes
no,
that have those, but you can get
yeah.
ones that
So
aren't NASes that have that multiple kind of drive system. Is
that's
that
right.
right?
Yeah. So you can get drives that are Thunderbolt drives that will, or USB drives that will plug in. It all centers around what's called a RAID system, or redundant array of independent disks, or some people
I'll
call
make
them
a note of that.
inexpensive disks. Redundant. I know exactly. There's my acronym for you.
That's good. I
And
like
basically
that.
it means it's a bunch of disks that are put in an enclosure, which is the name for the box that fits in. And the RAID is actually the system, either the programs via software or sometimes hardware, that basically, when you drop a file on there, it goes, oh, cut the file up into 4 bits. One of them goes onto the first drive, 1 bit goes on the second drive, 1 bit goes on the third drive, and 1 bit goes on the 4th drive. It's a little bit more technical than that, but that's the easiest way to explain it, the way
Right,
that
okay.
RAID kind of works. And the beauty of it is, having that RAID system gives you instant sort of redundancy, really, because your data is spread across multiple drives.
Hmm.
Now, people have already sort of said to me over the years, NAS is great, but it can be quite slow if you're using Wi-Fi and things like that. So there are a few things to consider. One of them, obviously, is the fact that ideally you need to be running cables, so running a network cable. If you don't have that ability, there's various other options that you can use to fix that. But ultimately, you ideally want to be using as much bandwidth as possible by running cables into it. I've just upgraded to a 10 gig network, which is quicker again and allows me to edit directly from the NAS with zero slowdown whatsoever. I can
Wow.
actually edit 4K video footage without any dropped frames directly from the NAS. Just because it's just because of the way it works. So I can just see that. There you go. Claire, is it Claire's asked? Oh no, Joe has just asked, what's the storage size? 10 terabytes in total. Okay, well, the beauty of this is it can be any size that you want, because you get to choose what size drives you put in. In the first instance, when you first build these, or when you first buy them, you would have 4 drives of the same size, but ultimately, if you decide to upgrade them, the advantage that the Synology has is you can change those drives one at a time by drives of a bigger size, and you can expand the array size, and you can just over time. So you can have planned expansion, planned scalability, and that's something that's the beauty of just this NAS, just this make of NAS. I've looked at other makes and they don't have the ability to do what this can do. So that's the reason why I chose this. I can explain more to people if they want to know more later. But
Well, we've got plenty of questions coming in, but I want to know what number 9 is.
Yeah. So Krish is on there. Hi, Krish. Great to see him. He's awesome photographer as well. Now, Tim has mentioned using a Lightroom catalog locally on the computer. there you go, on a NAS editing.
We'll. I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll bring up towards the very end. I'll bring up some of the. I'm highlighting as you're sort of talking. I'm making notes. I'm highlighting some of the comments and questions, so we can get to those towards the end. Which, otherwise, I think we're going to be doing a Synology ad.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on. You know, I love these guys, but let's move on from there. Okay. Backing up your images should be automated, not a manual process. Yeah, absolutely. The amount of times people come to me and they say, "Oh yeah, how do you back up your photographs?" And they're like, "I just drag all of these across, and I'm like, "You do that every night?" And they're like, "Oh yeah." And I'm like, "How much time is wasted doing that?" We're photographers. If you're not spending time pressing that button, clicking that shutter, and interacting with your clients, that is wasted time. People think I love tech, but really speaking, what I love is what it gives us, what the ability, it gives us time, gives us freedom. That's what technology does, right? So that's the important thing to remember, okay? Technology should free our process, not hinder it. Okay, so let's just go on there.
So my question is then, before you jump onto the next one, is there software, just quickly, is there software that you can use if you're not using a Synology, which I presume has the software so that it can automatically do that backup for you? Is there any other software that you would recommend for people who don't have the Synology that they could then use to do the backing up?
Yeah, Backblaze are great. Again, I'm not sponsored by them or anything, and I've tried loads of other companies beforehand, Carbonite and a couple of others as well, and they were all very good. But Backblaze was the one that worked the best for me. I use the B2 solution that goes onto the NAS, but you can get the basic solution. It's about £7 a month, I think.
It is very good. I've got it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it'll back up all your computer data as well, and that'll work really well. So this is roughly what my system looks like. It's not as neat as this. I got to say, it's not as neat as this. So when you ingest your pictures from your memory card and they go into your computer, there you go, Backblaze. Ian, hi Ian. Ian says there, fantastic. I use all of their Sense Labs products. They're just awesome. Brilliant. Yeah.
Get on with it, you.
Come on. Here we go. Right. So when the data goes into the computer, part of it goes directly through my network switch, which is a network switch is just like imagine a 4-cable extension plug, but for networks. So on the back of your routers in the house, if you've got a Sky router or something, it might only have like 4 ports. So a network switch expands that, allows you to plug more things in. So I've got things like my Hive plugged in there, and various other things in there as well. So pictures go into your computer. Your working drive there is something that you can use to store your pictures on whilst you edit them. But I'm also put everything directly on the NAS. And every night that then gets backed up to Backblaze here. I also use Synology's C2 backup as well, because that just works incredibly quickly. It's really good value for money. And if something was to stop working with Backblaze, I can also get my data from Synology. So this box in the bottom right here is a UPS, which stands for...
I've got one of them.
Yep. Which stands for uninterruptible power supply. So basically, it's like a big battery that sits there and all your devices plug into it so that if the power ever goes off, your computers and everything, your network switches, your NAS will still keep running, which is important because you don't just get blackouts, you can get what's called a brownout as well, which is... not like having a curry and 10 pints of lager. But it happens where the power just drops for a split second, and sometimes it can switch off devices like computers. They can restart and things like that. That manages all of that as well. So so having
I got
one
to
of those
say,
is quite
mate, I
important.
got to say they are an absolute blessing to have, because I've got two of those now.
Yeah,
And I've got one that there's only so many sockets on them, but they do the power surge protection as well. But both
yeah,
of mine, well, actually, the one that the computer is plugged into and the Wi-Fi, there's also a USB cable going into the computer from that, and the
yeah,
software on your computer that when you can hear it click. I mean, you know this. You hear it
yeah.
click to think, oh my God, the power's gone off. But you hear it automatically click in, so your computer's uninterrupted. But in the top right-hand corner of my screen, it tells me, with all the things
Yeah,
I've currently got plugged in, how much time I've got left before
yeah.
the battery goes completely. But if I'm not in and the computer's on its own and that happens, that
Yeah,
software will automatically correctly turn the computer off. It'll close things down.
that's
It is
right.
really
Yeah,
clever stuff. Really, really
yeah.
clever.
Having that, and UPS has been around for donkey's years, you know. But it's only recently in the last 10 years that it's become affordable and things that we would look at to use from home, you know. So yeah,
Mm.
so that's kind of roughly what my system looks like in the house. I still use a Netgear switch, but I've got a 10 gig switch now, which transfers data at 10 times the speed. So there you go. This is an interesting one, um, especially because I've worked in computers for years and I'd done Windows and Mac updates, and my company was a Mac support company. Uh, and it's always an interesting one when we talk to people about it, because they're like, oh, we don't want to use the latest version of the software just in case it's not working. And then there's some people who are always early adopters who will, you know, load the newest software as
Mm.
soon as it comes out. My best advice on this is don't upgrade to the latest operating system when it comes to Mac, for at least a year, because allow them time
Wow.
to work out the bugs, especially if you're in a production environment where you're relying on your computer working constantly, um, to, you know, in order you know, for it to work. You'll remember, Glyn, when Monterey came out, which
Mm.
was two back. So we've had Ventura before Sonoma, and
Mm.
Monterey before that. It did an automatic upgrade to Ventura, even though I'd had the box
That's right. I
saying
remember. Yeah.
don't update, uh, sort of unchecked, and it did an automatic upgrade to it, which essentially meant it threw up loads of problems with products that I had, and
Mm.
it meant that luckily I backed up to the hilt, meant that in approximately 9 hours, which is what it took me to wipe the computer and restore everything back to the moment that the computer decided to upgrade itself, I could do it, you know. But yeah, so always keep your production environment, your operating system, you know, at least a year behind. That being said, if you're on a version of the software, do the updates for it. So if you're using Monterey or Ventura, do the updates for that. And Apple sneakily, I mean, I love Apple products, but Apple sneakily, when you go into the system settings, they always push the latest operating system. You have to scroll to the bottom of that where it says more info or more updates there. And that's where it gives you the updates for the operating system that you are currently got installed on your computer.
Right.
The new one will be out later in the year. That's Sequoia. Where they come up with these names, I don't know. But
Is it, Pete, would you say that, I mean, you said there on the Mac ones always stay one kind of version behind. What about Windows users then? Would they,
yeah,
what's your knowledge
just
on
about
that?
to come to that now. So obviously, Microsoft, they have a period of time where they continue to support older operating systems. Windows 10 at the moment is still incredibly stable. Windows 11 seems to look more and more like Mac these days. I think they're both kind of, you know, very similar to use. But yeah, so there used to be a thing called Microsoft Mondays for those in for those in the know, where Microsoft used to push out the updates on a Monday, and things would break, and you know, they wouldn't work until they pushed out patch updates or KB updates until the Tuesdays or the Wednesday. So when it came to Microsoft updates, I'd never update on the day that the updates were released. I'd
Right.
always leave it a few weeks to see whether or not those updates would actually take, or whether they'd cause further problems. A typical example would be the problems that we had quite recently in the press that took out all the banks.
Yeah.
My local store, just the ATMs, loads of things didn't work because a third-party company that was working with Microsoft hadn't tested one of their latest updates, and it killed the operating systems. So, and then you've got Microsoft running around trying to get things fixed, and ultimately that would have only affected people who'd upgraded to that newer version of the operating systems,
Right. Okay.
but it is quite prevalent, So and these tech companies have to do a lot in order to make sure everything. Microsoft even more so, because they have to support thousands of different devices, but also internal components that can be very different from PC to PC. So hats off to them. They do a great job, but I still like my Mac. I think I'll stick with that.
Cool.
So there you go.
All
There you go. So this is just something I wrote then. So software not functioning as expected. So check if there's a newer, more compatible version of the software you're running. Most people will run older software, even when it comes to Adobe apps. And if you're paying for the Adobe subscriptions, you should be updating to the latest versions that your computer can take. Because you're paying for it. You're paying the subscription for them to, bring you all these wonderful new features. So, I recommend staying up to date. Always stay one version behind your Mac OS in a production environment. Don't do Windows updates the day they come out. Raising issues with support teams. Done enough of this in my time, on both sides of it. Raising issues to other companies, but also having people raising issues to me. And there's a level of investigative process that has to go in when you're a technical support person, and you may not get an answer straight away. So just be aware that support teams, if you're raising issues with support teams, you might not always get an answer straight away. The other thing as well is, so I use a piece of software called Parallels Desktop. Parallels Desktop is a virtualized program. So what it does is it allows you to load a version of Windows or Mac OS onto Mac OS in a window, and it separates a small part of the hard drive, completely separate from your main operating system, where you can run Windows literally in a window on it. And you can use it to test software, new versions of operating systems. You can use it to run older versions of software. If you've got a piece of software that doesn't work on the latest version of Mac OS and you desperately need that for your business, you can run an old version of an operating system in it, and it'll allow you to use it as if it was running on the actual operating system. So I test a lot of stuff. It's called a sandbox because that's how it's referred to. And having that piece of software allows me to test new versions of software before it affects my main computer, if that makes sense.
It does, totally, mate. Yeah, and in fact, Tom agrees with you. Perfectly explained, Pete. Cheers.
Yeah,
I've put my leg up, so I'm out.
Yeah.
He's not well. He's had an operation. Tom's been in hospital, so for you to even be there, Tom, is appreciated.
Oh, Tom, I hope you get better soon. I know what it's like. My son broke his leg not so long back on a skateboard, and and that was pretty traumatic for him. So I hope you get better soon, buddy.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine. Cool. He's a tough lad.
Yeah.
Right, come on, number 7.
Okay. Oh, hang on. Number 7. There you go. Except your kit will be obsolete the day you buy it. This is always a bone of contention, right? As photographers, learn to use the kit that you've got. Don't bother buying new stuff unless it's going to give you something that the current kit doesn't give you.
Yeah.
That's that. Lots of people will sort of say, "Oh, I always want to have the latest stuff. I always want to have the latest stuff." Yes, but if you're a photographer, you should be able to take a great picture with a 10-year-old camera, um, or a brand new camera. Some of the newer features, obviously, granted, they allow you to do so much more, but you know that's going to be out of date one day. You know, train, make sure the best tool that you use is this. And kind of, that you're creating something. The camera should be the last part of the tool, of the process. Sorry, the last
Hmm.
tool in the process. So yeah, so I threw that in, but loads and just yeah, don't tell Chris. Thanks, Anthony. Yeah, no problem. There you go. This is an interesting one. Buying a hard drive doesn't mean your data is backed up. Oh my gosh, that's so true, right? Test your backups. I can't state this enough. Test your backups. Even if it means once a month, try restoring a file. See how long it takes to restore. If you lost that drive, or if you lost your computer and you had to restore everything, how long is it going to take to restore all your data? What's the quickest method of getting the data back? Also, this number 6 here comes
Oh,
back to the fact that you don't you have to automate your process a little bit and keep an eye on it, because as human beings we are forgetful. I always remember years ago, one of the clients in my computer business they used to have those tape drives. Do you remember those big tape drives? They
I
were
do.
big square things like this, and you'd put them in and they'd store terabytes of data on a physical tape. And there was a lady called Sheila, and I can't remember her name, we'll call her Sheila. Her job was to on a Monday, it was to bring in the tape for the weekend, swap it over and put the other tape in a bag and take it home. It could just as well have been Brian. I'm not going to tarnish Sheila, but but yeah. So literally, this person had taken the tape drive home, and the tape drive had gotten lost or damaged, and it meant that they'd lost days and days worth of
Oh
data
no.
from the weekend right the way through. So, you know, wherever possible, try and automate your process to allow you to take one thing out of take one less thing for you to try and remember, so that you can get on with the process of creating, right?
Sure.
Okay, what have we got? Oh yeah, how to avoid hard drive failure. People always ask me this. How do I avoid hard drive failure? You can't. They're only ever in two states: failed and failing. Right?
Oh, good.
It's like failed and failing. It's just so. Yeah. So look, run first aid in disk utility on your Mac. You can find that in applications, utilities, disk utility. Okay, and on the left-hand side there, you'll see all the names of the drives. For the Mac OS, you're looking for one called Data. You click on it and click First Aid. In my mind, the First Aid and the Erase buttons are way too close together. But just remember to click First Aid and let it run. If you've never run it before, it can take some time. But just make sure just make sure
Well,
you do
even if you don't think there's any issues, it's kind of like prevention's better than cure. Just run the
yeah,
first aid
very
thing
much
whenever you
so.
think of it. No, I never knew that. Okay,
Very
interesting.
much so, because without going into too much technical detail, Joe's just asked me, can I spell parallels? That's I haven't had any beers tonight, so probably yes, I can spell
Well,
parallels.
while it's up on screen, there you go.
Yeah, there we
PAR.
go. ALLELS. There you go. So yeah, the thing to remember is that all your files on your computer have permissions. So you as a user have a permission provided to you by the operating system to read and write that file. Over time, when files are moved around the hard drive, They sometimes will lose permissions and things like that. Permissions get damaged. Basically, clicking that first aid, it's like an MOT for your car. You know, you wouldn't drive your car if it hadn't been MOT'd or if it hadn't been serviced. That's what this is. It's a service for your car. PCs,
I've
ironically,
learned something big time tonight then, because I never knew about that.
yeah, and it'll speed up your hard drives as well. It'll definitely speed up your hard drives because it puts everything back where it should be and optimizes the drives. Ironically, Windows machines, certainly the latest version of Windows, are a little better at this. They have software built into the operating system that does this all for you behind the scenes.
Brilliant.
Mac OS, the operating system isn't quite as it doesn't need quite as much looking after as Windows because of the way it's written, but ultimately doing that on PCs and Macs is a good thing. On a PC, it's called disk cleanup. You can just hit the Windows button, type in disk cleanup, and run it, and it'll allow you to free up space in there as well. So that works quite well, you know. Buy a computer with an SSD internal drive. Does anybody have computers with non-SSD drives? Let's not talk about fusion drives. Let's not talk about fusion drives, okay? You know, that's a dark period. But essentially, yeah, computers with solid state drives, however much you think you're going to use, double it. Okay, so if you think you're going to, I only need 500 gig, buy 1 terabyte. If you think you need 1 terabyte, buy 2 terabytes. Because operating systems get more bloated as you go along. Programs like Photoshop that started at 400 meg and now 4 terabytes in size, you know. So file sizes are always, this comes back to file sizes getting bigger, really. Don't store your images on your internal drive. Oh, God. How many times I've spoken to people and I was like, where are your files? They're all on my internal drive. And, you know, they've got maybe like half a gig left in space on their hard drive. This is the best analogy that I can think of. Think of your hard drive being like a library. If you're going into the library and you've got to search through 1 million books to find the file, it's going to take you forever. Same with a computer. If you go into a library and it's super organized and it's only got 150 files in there, bam, it's going to find it. Bam, it's going to find it really quickly. So the fewer files that you've got on your internal hard drive, the quicker it's going to find things. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. As your hard drives get more full, it's going to take longer to access them because the computer system has to look through more files in order to find the one that you want. Yeah.
Cool.
Have Time Machine or Windows file history backup. That's a given. People always say, why do I need Time Machine if I have Backblaze, right? Backblaze will back up your files and everything online, i.e. away from your computer. But according to the internet connection you have, it might take longer to restore those files. If you're out in the country, you know, then it can take longer than if you're right in the city and you've got a really fast connection. So that's something to be aware of. Time Machine also allows you to go back and restore. As long as you keep that drive connected, it will back up every hour. And it'll allow you incremental files. So, for instance, if you edit a picture and then think, oh gosh, I prefer the edit that I did yesterday, and you'd accidentally deleted or overwritten that, you can then go back using Time Machine to just restore that one file or the whole folder. And if, like me, you allowed the operating system to install a new operating system, and you can then restore all your files to a previous operating system through the use of Migration Assistant, which is built in as well and allows you to take one file, a whole folder, or a whole hard drive and restore it back. The other thing as well is if you've got a Time Machine backup and your computer gets stolen, you can buy a new computer and restore that time machine backup to your new computer, and it will be exactly as your old computer looked. So with it'll have the wallpaper that you used, it'll have the programs that you used, it'll even have all your presets and anything you got stored on that hard drive in there.
Cool. All right. Quick question for Marjorie before you run on there. Marjorie said, do you have to close all the programs when you run First Aid, or does it work in the background?
So it used to work in the background. Newer versions of it, it doesn't matter if you have the programs open, but it will run quicker if you have fewer programs open. So make sure all of the dots underneath the programs that you've got are off. The only one you can't turn off, obviously, is Finder, because that is like Explorer, File Explorer on Windows, and that runs constantly. There you go. So yeah, there you go. So 34 media said First Aid will pause any programs when it does the cleanup. Yeah, exactly like that. But like I said, it will run quicker if you've got fewer things, because it doesn't store them in the RAM. So yeah. Can you give your thoughts on whether you use?
We'll cover that. We'll come back to all that, mate. Don't worry about that.
Back at that later. Yeah. Okay. Right. The other thing as well, buy reliable makes. Oh, yeah. Look, reliable makes tend to have more money, which goes into research and development, which then means they're generally more reliable. That's my thought process. It's worked in the past. I've had, I test a lot of different products and different things that get sent to me. There you go. And generally, without exception, better makes. When you pay slightly more for a product, you're going to get a better product, and you're going to get better support if things go wrong. And so yeah, so think of that. Lexar, SanDisk, they're the ones to use. Cool. Use cameras that got dual card slots. It's a no-brainer if you're in the wedding industry that you would use that. As to whether or not you shoot RAW, JPEG, JPEG, RAW, that's totally down to you. My personal preference is I shoot RAW, because I don't tend to deliver anything that hasn't been edited. So because it has my own colors and flavor and my own style to it. So I would never deliver a JPEG without it being edited. So that's why I use RAW. Cool. Oh gosh, we better speed up, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I'll tell you what we will do. What we will do is we're going to have a very, very quick break, so you can kind of put some oil in your cup and then really go for it, because time is racing by.
Okay.
But I'll play a quick break, have a bit of a slurp, and then we'll come back and go. What are we on now? Number 5, is it? We're at number 5. Are we there? We're number 5.
Yeah, we're building up. We're at number 5, but
we're at number 5, right?
Yeah, we're at number 5.
Let's have a quick break, and then we'll come back and go from number 5. Right, back in a moment. All righty. So, God, 5 to 8 already, if you're in the UK anyway. Time is racing by. I'm making loads of notes, but let's have a quick break. I'll quickly play an ad, then we'll dive back on with Pete, who's going to go from 5 to 1. Let's see who's top of the charts when it comes to tips. Alrighty, I think my wallet is relatively safe so far. So let's bring Pete back in.
I'd steered away from the purchasing mode for you, but I've got everything.
We've spoken
ready.
offline anyway. You know what I'm going to be doing. All right. Okay.
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
dive back over to
Okay.
your screen then, mate.
Backup's not running. I'm going to go through these quickly. Bear in mind, you can always reach out to me later or after after our live, and I can go into more detail for anything that's not covered. So, okay, so I always get people asking, backups are not running. Is there space on your computer for it to run? Is it configured to back up the whole drive or just certain folders? Is the destination hard drive plugged in and showing up? Time Machine will not back up if you don't have that drive plugged in. Amount of times people have said, oh, yeah, Time Machine does all my backups. And you look at it and it hasn't been backed up since 2022. So yeah, is there space on the hard drives? Always choose, if you're buying those single drives, which I don't recommend, but if you are buying those single drives, look at least 4 times the amount of space you think you're going to need. Yeah. If it's a RAID array, if it's a NAS, is one of the disks damaged, you have to choose a drive that's at least the same size, if not bigger. And Synology allows you to expand using bigger drives as well. Are your USB ports set to power saving? Windows used to have a problem in Windows 10 where if the power saving was turned on for the USB ports, it would turn the drives off, or the drives would automatically disconnect. Wow. So that's something worth checking if your USB ports are set to power saving. Cool. There'll always be a different way to do things that seems better and initially learn and evolve. This is an interesting one because everybody's going to have their own way of doing things, and guaranteed you're going to think maybe that's a better idea. Think very carefully before you change anything in your workflow, because small changes are great, but you can end up causing yourself a lot of headache and a lot of problems if you aren't planning these things. So yeah, it's so good to listen to people who are perhaps doing the job you're doing, but don't take everybody's advice, even mine, with a pinch of salt, because it might not be suitable for you. There's going to be 20 ways to do something, right? You'll never have enough time to plan when disaster strikes. So start early, start your planning, and make sure that, because the worst case scenario is something happens. You've got to get a wedding out, you've got a couple of days to do it, and your computer is on its last legs. Don't leave it until something breaks to change something. Have a plan B. Just as an example, right? This evening, I've got my laptop here just behind me, just in case something went wrong with this computer. This is my main editing computer and it works perfectly well, but that's my plan B there.
And this is a tech expert who's thinking that things could go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. If things have the capacity to go wrong, there's a probability that they will, and it'll usually be at the worst possible time. So think of that. That's what I would say. So plan out what you're going to do. We can help people design plans for the future. Your business is going to grow, as an enthusiast photographer, you're going to take more photographs. So plan for the worst, hope for the best. 34 Media, absolutely right. Yeah. Okay, common things that go wrong that I see every day. Card failure. Oh my gosh. Change your cards, right? Don't wait till your cards go wrong. So a lot of these cards, internal cards, only have a certain amount of read and writes. I think it's something like 1 million reader writes, which you think to yourself, wow, that's a lot. But when you're reading and writing multiple files all the time, that's only maybe 100 weddings or 30 weddings or 40 weddings, depending on how many photographs you take per wedding, or whatever type of photography you do. I'm using weddings as an example because we tend to take lots of photographs of right throughout the day with lots of things going on. But card failure is one of the main problems that people come to me with. And luckily, people like SanDisk and Lexar, they will give you software to help you to restore your data from your cards. But again, another advert for having cameras that have 2 card slots in it. Hard drive failure, internal, external. Hard drives have got a certain life. SSDs have got a certain life. The bigger SATA drives have a certain shelf life. Plan in when you're going to when you're going to upgrade them. Look at what's around. Look at sizes. Don't just look for the cheapest. There's a reason why better drives are more expensive. And that's something you need to take into consideration as well, right? You can run Windows and Mac OS from a USB-C drive as a backup. Something like one of these. You can have a version of Mac OS on one of these and literally plug it in and boot from one of these if the worst case scenario happens. Yeah, camera equipment theft. One of the things that I started doing in the last couple of years was I use an Apple AirTag. Other makes are available, but you can use an Apple AirTag, and the Apple AirTag is hidden somewhere in my camera case. So that if things go walkabout, then you can track where things are.
I use those as well. I've got them on my keys, in my camera bag, and all over the place. And actually, when I was down last week, I was down at on the coast again, which I go down most 3-4 times a week. But I was walking down there last week, and my phone had a thing pop up saying AirTag. Somebody else's AirTag had activated. Yes. It picked up on it to say there's one nearby, and I thought, wow,
do you know why they do that? Do you know why they do that? It's quite scary, actually. But the reason why they did that is there was a case in America where an ex-husband put an AirTag in his ex-wife's car so he could track where she went. And it became such a prevalent thing that the intrusion of people's, privacy, that now you can see if, that if someone's put an AirTag. That's the reason. It's a scary world we live in, right? But that's the reason for it, that Apple addressed it before it became an issue, really, or because it was an issue, Yeah. Common things that go wrong. Software not functioning as expected. One of the beautiful things about the Adobe software is that if Lightroom, Photoshop, or something like that stops working, you can go into Creative Cloud, click on the app, and install it directly from there and reinstall it, and it will fix the majority of problems that go wrong with Lightroom or Photoshop. It works really well. It's the first place if you're getting error messages constantly with Lightroom and Photoshop and other software as well, then you can look at reinstalling the software. It becomes sometimes a little bit more difficult with Windows machines because you've got to have the original files and things like that for applications other than the Adobe software. But a reinstall of software can sometimes fix that as well. Hardware failure. This is where Windows users really have the upper hand, I guess, because if I've got a failing hard drive, or if you've got a failing piece of RAM or even a processor or something like that, you can replace those just by buying the specific part. Whereas Mac users, we tend to panic and take it crying into the Mac store, into the Apple store. So that's kind of hardware failure tends to be a lot more serious. One of the things I will say is if you've got a MacBook Pro, don't put it on your lap to edit. These things have, look, the fans, that's the airflow goes in there. Yeah. Don't edit them on your lap. They'll go rocket high, high temperatures. They'll overheat, and ultimately it'll lead to graphics card failure and hard drive failure and things like that. So make sure that you're in well ventilated areas. iMacs
So
and
don't put a laptop on your lap. Got
that's
it.
right. Yeah, yeah. Very stupid. It sounds very stupid, but all of these devices generate an awful lot of heat, and apart from actually burning yourself, because these devices get incredibly hot, people always say, Apple, come up with products and they're a wonderful color and they're aluminium, and the aluminium is there to dissipate the heat. People think, oh, it's there because it looks great. It does look great. It's there to dissipate the heat as well. Yeah, so that's something to think about, Backups not running properly. Again, look, we've gone over this before, but that's definitely one of the things that I see on a day-to-day basis. Can't recover data from backup. Check your backups. Restore files from your backup. Do it once a month, even if it's just 1 or 2 files. Plugins or presets disappearing. Here's an interesting one. Store all your plugins, presets, actions, anything like that. Stick them onto Dropbox or somewhere like that, so that you can get access to them if you're out of the house or you're moving to a new computer. They're all located in one place, and that gets backed up to the cloud then. That's
a good idea. Cool. I like that. Yeah, I like that.
This is like your health thing. Do you remember people always say, "Oh, building time for your health," or you'll be forced to do it. Same thing about maintenance. So yeah, building time for your maintenance. Really, that's running your. So that can be, by maintenance, that can also mean things like calibrating your screen, right? Calibrating your screen, which is incredibly important.
Hell yeah.
Because otherwise, how do you know where you're starting from? How do you know that your green, it looks like the green that everybody else is using? So maintenance, calibration, even things like cleaning your printer's heads, right? That sort of thing. So yeah, just
actually on that note, Pete, I don't know if you can see behind me here, just on that shoulder there, that's my Canon Pro 300. And I see it, look.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
It's got a cover on it. Always got a cover on it so that you don't get any dust and stuff getting into it while it's not being used, because obviously that can cause a print all kinds of issues.
My Canon printer is down there, and I don't have a cover on it. I use it daily, so I'd be taking the cover off, putting it back on again, taking it off, putting it back on again. But yeah, that's a really good idea. Yeah, just don't leave the devices on whilst you've got the cover on. Yeah, they get very hot. Cool. Right. What else have we got? Maintenance you need to do regularly. PC disk cleanup. PC software updates as well. Mac, PC, Adobe updates, or Mac and PC Adobe updates. Yeah. Mac using disk utility. Again, utilities, applications, utilities, disk utility, and it's in there. There's a little check box in there as well that says show all available drives, which is just up and to the right. And that's worth seeing, because you get to see all the partitions of the drives and things like that as well. Mac updates, stay one version behind. Reboot, right? Once a week. Reboot, do updates. Make sure that you are giving the opportunity to the computer to clean out the caches that get full. Lightroom caches are another thing as well. Every time you import pictures, Lightroom will generate preview files even after you've stopped using those galleries. Lightroom still has the preview files there as well. So cleaning those out is an important thing to do as well. There's a very famous rock and roll photographer who's a friend of mine who came to me with his computer running at almost near almost ready to die, and he had approximately 800 gig of preview files.
Jeez.
He did have 3.4 terabytes of photographs on his NAS, mind, and in his Lightroom catalog. The catalog was fine, but yeah, just he had 3.4 million photographs he had in there, sorry. But yeah, so when you think about having lots of separate catalogs or one catalog, I'm a one catalog type of person. Cool. Right. Software will always be updated. New features will always be available. Figure out what you need and keep your system lean. Yes. Okay. Quick exercise for everybody, right? Go through all your applications and delete if you haven't used it in a year, chances are you're not going to use it. Delete it, free the space up, get rid of it. Yeah. Get rid of it. Amount of times you see people and they've got, versions of Photoshop that go back to CS5. One lady, she had version 5.5 of, remember that?
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
Photoshop, and every version ever since. And it had, rather than check in the box that says uninstall old versions, she didn't do that.
Never do that though. Never do. Always have that. So, in fact, that's one advice I'll give just on the Adobe side of it is not to have automatic updates on.
Yeah,
it'll come up on your Creative Cloud. Little sort of red dot will come up saying how many updates there are. Check it out, and then manually go through them. Because if you've inadvertently got that ticked, something goes wrong and it delete. It's just a whole world of pain. Obviously, it can be different nowadays with Creative Cloud because it is very, very good at recovery and stuff. But always have that one version behind just in case. I would suggest.
Absolutely. So for me, I use the beta version and I use the new version, but make sure that you only have maybe one version behind. Having 5, 6, 7 versions of the same software does not make sense, So yeah, but keeping our system lean, we got to keep our bodies lean to keep going. We need to keep our systems lean to keep running. So that's the way you've got to look at it. Here we go. This is I always finish up on this one, except you can't do it all yourself. Hire an expert to help you. Who would that be, right? Exactly. But all joking aside, there's things that I'm no good at. I'm not very good at cutting video together and stuff like that. I can do all the photography side of things, but when it comes to video, I've got a guy that does it for me because he can do it in half the time, twice as good. Look at what you want for an end result and figure out if you're the person to deliver that end result. Because ultimately the customer is not going to care. They're only going to care on what you deliver, So yeah, so that's kind of
cool.
That's we went over the hour mark by about.
That's all right.
Minutes.
No, we can do. We got flexibility with. The chat room is still with us. People are still there. It's not a problem. I was just conscious of it because I know that I think we got to like number 6, and there is so much to it, and clearly people want to know about it. Do you know what I mean? So the fact that you've offered that people can get in touch with you afterwards and stuff like that is great. But let's just spend a little bit of time having a look through to see what, not necessarily always comments, but questions, but there'll be some comments in there as well. Let me just quickly run through some of these.
I'll answer anything you want to throw at me.
Well, let me just see here then. So, there you go. This was a recent one, actually. Our friend Anthony Crothers here, his son-in-law, Mal, nearly lost 30,000 iPhone images from the cloud. So it's doing this kind of, being aware of backing up and stuff like that is definitely worth doing.
Absolutely.
On that note there was something to do with that because I looked on the internet because Malcolm got in touch with me to see if I could help him out. It seemed to be a common thing that people were unaware of when there was changes in the operating system, iOS, that actually, no, what seemed to trigger it was when people upgraded their storage in their iCloud for their phone. And they didn't realise it because they didn't go back all these months and whatever, or years. They realised that early years' worth of photos had completely gone and people were having to get in touch to get some help to get them recovered. And that's what happened to Mal. But he did get them back, which is great.
This obviously, this camera now is my iPhone camera. This is plugged in here whilst we've been speaking. It's just run a backup to the computer as well. So it automatically backs up when I come in to the house over the Wi-Fi, but because I've plugged it in now, it's automatically backed up to the computer as well. So
Clever stuff. Really clever stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
So Grace said about cloud storage. We covered that. Comment from our friend Tim. She said, just don't put your Lightroom Classic catalog on a NAS. Catalog should be on a local drive. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely, for a couple of reasons. One, it's going to be quicker when it's on your internal drive. That doesn't mean store the photographs. That means just store the catalog. That catalog will then be backed up using, if you use Backblaze, it'll be backed up to the cloud, or it can be backed up on Time Machine. So you can get your catalog there. But yeah, it's like the old adage, never put all your eggs in one basket, you know? Having it spread across multiple devices means there's fewer chances that you're going to have failing. What's the chances that 2 devices are going to go wrong? You know, there's less of a chance of that than one singular failure of one single device.
Sure.
You know?
Stephen Burkitt has put here, so isn't the Backblaze NAS B2B, which I think is the version you said that you've got, isn't it a lot more expensive than the basic version?
Yeah, it is more expensive, but then what it does is if you've got your computer turned off, Backblaze won't back up your computer if you've got it switched off. There's a lot more features with it. It's designed for business. And essentially, it runs from 11 o'clock in the night through till 7 in the morning and backs up all the files incrementally that I have changed during the day. So it is more expensive, but you do get what you pay for.
Exactly, yeah. It's what your budget allows as well, isn't it? Let's face it. As long as you're doing some backing up, I would suggest is probably the best thing, Pete. Would you say, yeah?
Yeah, and one's a personal solution designed for a home user. One's a business solution designed for a business that has, and there's other considerations as well, you know, that like where the data is stored in, you know, in different data centers and things like that. So yeah.
People who would have tuned into the live broadcast that I did with Bert Monroy recently, I was asking him about it, and he actually uses a RAID system, and he has multiple copies of his files, because you can imagine the amount of file storage that he needs and the size of them. He has them stored. One, I think he said he has like a bank vault type of place, like a storage thing at a bank, and also a relative has got one in another town. So then he kind of swaps them around constantly. So he's always got, you know, safe backup cells other than being all on the one location in case of fire or drought, you know, sort of flooding or whatever. So, right. So Chris Bolton here has put backup RAWs to the cloud or just finished JPEGs and TIFFs. It takes forever to back up RAWs. Yeah,
it does, Chris. I appreciate that. My backup system currently means that my RAWs do go to the cloud, but they go to Backblaze. But I do curate them as well. I've got a 1 gig line in here. Luckily enough, I've got fiber in Cardiff, which means that I've got quite a fast connection. So it's not so bad. But even using something like Zenfolio, somebody mentioned SmugMug earlier. I use Zenfolio, you know, to deliver my images to my clients. You can use that as a backup of your JPEGs, you know, because they're not stored on a computer in the house. It's another location where your data is stored elsewhere, you know, and that's all we're talking about here is, you know, don't store your data look at where your single point of failure is, you know, or SPF.
TLAs. Stephen Burkitt has put, would an OWC Thunder Bay be an alternative to a Synology and still be able to use the basic Backblaze?
I don't know. I've used OWC, so I've used OWC before, but I've not used the devices, unfortunately. So I can't tell you that. But the
We'll
advanced,
check
the
it out and we'll
reason
get
why,
back to you.
yeah, the reason the reason the Synology one works is because it's got the ability to be able to install programs on it. If the OWC Thunder Bay has that, then it might be something similar. I doubt it would be exactly the same, but ultimately what you're looking for is a system that allows you to install these kind of applications on the NAS, and then just gives it multi usage, really, or multi-purpose, multi-purpose. So yeah.
Okay, right. Comment here from my friend Ian says Backblades needs you to go in and add the external hard drive. It doesn't do it automatically. Good point.
That's right. Yeah,
Very good point.
The personal version, you have to go in and do it, and you also have to have them connected to be able to back it up.
Right.
So that's a downside of having the personal version. And of course, you've got 5 computers. You've got to buy 5 different licenses for it. So
Yeah.
You have 5 computers. I've got 3 here, but I'd have to have 3 separate licenses for each separate computer.
Yeah.
Backing up from one centralized location is just easier for me.
Makes life
it's not
easier,
going to work
definitely.
for everybody, but
It's what's fit for purpose.
Yeah, exactly. And I will point this out. There is no one size fits all. It just doesn't exist. One size can fit some of the people. It'll fit. It won't be suitable for other people. The workflow for a sports photographer is completely different to that of a wedding photographer. I've got friends who are out in Paris now photographing, and their workflow is completely different to mine. So yeah, but they all have similar points that everybody's got to back up.
Yeah. I think it's just a comment here, but 34 meters. But I update my Mac software when it happens, mainly for protection from viruses. Although I have had issues with Adobe software many times, that I get scared of doing. Okay.
One of the things that you mentioned, Glenn, earlier, in regards to the Adobe software, is you have the ability when you go in there to uninstall the version, and you can go and back and reinstall a previous version. Yeah, you've seen that, right? You can go in there. So you can go back a version. It becomes more difficult with Lightroom because Lightroom upgrades your catalog to the newest version, but it appends the name of it. So if you go into your Lightroom folder, I think it's on version 13.3 at the moment. And I've literally got main catalog 13.3. Then it's also got main catalog 13.0 in it. And those are upgraded versions as well. So trying to open a newer version of a catalog on an older version of the software won't work. You have to have the version that's appropriate for the software. But I do agree that doing updating to the latest version of the software you're currently running is a good idea. Getting to the latest, I won't be upgrading to Sequoia anytime soon. I'm going to let people beta test that, and I might run it in a virtualized environment to have a little look at it. To also see whether or not it's got anything there included that I want.
I won't do it until you give me the thumbs up. I know that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. A lot of these Apple brings in, new versions every year. And it might be that this year, you could invite your friends to share play, and you can, and the icons have now come in 20 different colors. I don't care about that. I want it to be stable, and I want it to work. So this is why I wait. This is why I wait and give it time for any bugs to be ironed out.
Get them all ironed out. Let somebody else suffer. But
exactly.
but just, there's any other questions in here. We've got some great comments coming in, Pete. Manda Glassbull, she's put, this will be worth a rewatch. Great information from Norman.
Oh, thank you. That's brilliant.
And
Norman.
also Tim, just to finish off, Tim's posted here, macOS users iCloud storage 2 terabytes is only $9.99 US per month. Great way to store files and data you can get from any of your Apple computers and or iPhone. It is, that's not bad. I mean, $9.99. I think it's the equivalent. It's like $9.99 in the UK, isn't it? Really, it's not like there's not a currency conversion there. It is pretty much $9.99.
Yeah,
but it's still a good price for 2 terabytes, which is what I've got, which is great.
Absolutely. The other thing I've just got to say on that subject is make sure you go into your system settings and that you actually turn on desktop and documents in iCloud. If you don't turn that on, it won't back up your desktop and documents, and you'll know that it's backed up because you'll see a little cloud icon on your documents on the desktop, and that will indicate that that's backing up to that's backing up to the cloud.
Cool. Well, last couple of comments here is Makeup Effects by David Malinowski says some great info. Thanks. And your friend of mine, Anthony Crothers, great session both. Thanks for sharing, Pete. Top man. Good. Pete, obviously there's tons to go through there. And I know that I've had to kind of move you on a little bit because there is just so much that you want to share. And there's so much that's valid for people to know because let's face it, we all love going out there creating, but it's just the most horrible feeling when you come back and something has gone wrong. You can't open some software or your computer's just keeps restarting. And we've all had it. Do you know what I mean? Most of us have had it and it's a horrible, horrible feeling. So thankfully there are people like you out there that can jump in and help. Yeah.
And I'm absolutely, look, if everybody gives Tech for Togs a like and just and on Instagram and stuff like that, and just send me any messages, I'll do my best to answer any questions. We get tagged in loads of stuff, and I try my best to answer questions for people as best as possible. But I'm a working photographer as well. And remember, all of these things that have happened to you, they've probably happened to me at some point. And I get, it's a case of wanting to get to the bottom of these problems so that, and then passing the information on, which is what we should all be doing as photographers anyway.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Well, Pete, I've just flashed up the Tech for Togs website there. I will put, obviously, there'll be a blog post, as there always is with these lives, tomorrow. I'll put the links to everything that you want me to link into there, the Tech for Togs, your own Instagram, stuff like that, the website. That'll all be in there. And the great thing is I won't be trimming this, the length of this video out in the recording. So that means that the chat, the whole of the live chat will also be there for for any questions that maybe you might want to dive onto when you've got time. Maybe, who knows? But
I got a wedding tomorrow.
Pete, oh, of course you have. Yeah, God bless you.
Monday wedding.
Well, Pete, I mean, it's a huge thank you from me because this is a big topic to cover, and clearly it's been well received because the chat room has been really, really active. So thank you to everybody in there as well. But Pete, from me, thank you so much for giving up your time, especially when you've got a wedding tomorrow.
Thank you. And thank you for everybody for throwing all your questions in there.
Brilliant stuff. Pete, don't disappear. I'll catch you in the virtual, I'm going to do it, green room. I'll see you there in a moment. All right, but I'll catch you in a mo. All right, matey.
Thanks.
All righty. So, yeah, plenty to think about there. I know that I didn't want to spend too much, but, in all honesty, me and Pete have been talking offline anyway. I am going to be getting a new RAID backup system, and I am probably going to be going for that Synology because the kind of work that I do, it means that I need to access stuff when I'm away from home, so I'll be able to log into that. And there's lots of other benefits as well. So that is what I'm going to be looking at. But thank you to you. Thanks for all the input there. It's been great to see the chat being so busy. Just so that you know, even, I won't be here next week. There won't be a live next week. However, there will be one after that. So I'm only taking 1 week off, just 1 week off. There's a few things going on next week, so I need to get those all sorted. But just so that you know, guests that are coming up, keep an eye on the socials for this. But we've got coming up, not necessarily the first two. The order might change. We've got Renee Robin, unbelievable. She's an incredible photographer, compositor in Photoshop, whatever. Unmesh Dinder, you may have heard of that fella. We've also got Enrico Fossati. Now, if you remember last week we had Nick Page on, incredible Nick Page. One of his photography heroes was Enrico. Enrico's going to be on. And my God, you wait till you see his images. And then as well, in early first week in September, we've got Ellie Rothney. Looking forward to that. She is the most amazing wildlife photographer. She travels all over, goes to Africa and places like that. You wait till you see her images. I saw her presenting at the recent Wales and West show. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful photography. It's just captivating. She's going to be on as well. So there's some great guests coming up, but I need a break next week. A few things going on. I might dive in and do something, but it won't be with a guest, but I'll keep you posted, keep it on the socials. But there you go. Those of you who aren't members of my newsletter subscriber list, join it. Why not join it? Because there's free content that I'm posting out, which is only for subscribers. It will not be shared on my YouTube channel, Lightroom videos, Photoshop videos, anything else that I think would be great to record and post out there. I'll be putting those up on that. So by all means, check it out. You can also get to it from my homepage on my website. But that's it. Folks, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks again to Pete. I will see you in 2 weeks. Same time, same place, 7 p.m. UK for either, because I've got to sort their dates out, Renee Robin or Ramesh Dinda. Whoever it's going to be a corker. Right, catch you later.